No.
Move up.
The front row. Just stay there. Leave that there. Yeah, that's what I figured. Front row. Second row.
Before we get started and friends on this program, just quickly, we have a little exercise we'd like everyone to participate in right quick. Does everyone here have a mobile phone?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Do you have your mobile phones in the air?
Yes, sir.
All right, turn them off.
What are we doing with it?
Turn them off.
Oh.
We don't.
I thought you told us to sit in.
We don't want to interrupt the presentations today, and we want to make sure we have a live audience that is watching here in the United States as well as abroad, and we just don't want to interrupt the presentation in any way. So if you just please mute your phones or turn them off, that would be best. Thank you.
Lorenzo. Let's go.
We'd like to begin our program for today. Our third annual Muslim American Leadership Day observance. Praise be to Allah. We are here in Newark, New Jersey. We begin always, we greet as Muslims greet. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
We welcome you with us. Those joining us live and those joining us by the platforms, Facebook, and also YouTube. We welcome you. My name is Lorenzo Elamine. I'm the owner of Elevate Priority Distributors and also Imam of Bilal Ibn Rabah Center in Columbus, Ohio. I will be sharing hosting duties today with our sister Lori Dewan, the Chief of Staff of the Muslim American Ministry for Human Salvation. Regarding this special day, this day is emphasizing Muslim American leadership excellence. I'd like to share with you a quote. Yes, the praise is for God, and we are here to celebrate. And by celebrating, I mean acknowledge its importance in an extraordinary way. Not in an ordinary way, but in an extraordinary way. We are here to acknowledge the birth of Imam W. Deen Mohammed. And the way that we are celebrating that is by saying to the world we belong to a Muslim American tradition of leadership. I think that he will be pleased with that. He will be accepting of that. He wouldn't feel comfortable that we will be identifying his birthday as something very special if we were just focusing on him as an individual. He would be very happy, I believe, if he knew that we were focusing on his birthday as a commemoration and also as an opportunity to commit and recommit ourselves publicly to a tradition of leadership excellence, beginning with the influence of his father's teacher, Mr. W.D. Farrar. End of quote. This quote is from the one which is emphasizing the life and work of Imam W.D. Mohammed in an extraordinary way. Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed last year's Muslim American Leadership Day. My first introduction is our Imam from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Duhan Abdullah. Imam Duhan Abdullah is a devoted student of the teachings of Imam W.D. Mohammed and a staunch supporter of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed, the successor of Imam W.D. Mohammed. I bring before you our brother and friend, Imam Duhan Abdullah. Peace be upon you all. Assalamu alaikum. The praise is for Allah, the praise is for God. We begin with God's name. He is the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We witness that there is no God except him, and we witness that Muhammad, to whom the Quran was revealed, is his servant, slave servant, and messenger. Muhammad the Prophet was a product of God's special redeeming mercy. I want to say something a little bit about that. But in the context, I want to give you a reference. There is a story in the Quran of Prophet Joseph. And Prophet Joseph, when he was younger, his brothers were jealous of him. And in their jealousy, they schemed against him. They were jealous because of the attention and the affection that he was receiving from his father. And because these brothers were jealous and they wanted that attention and affection for themselves, they schemed against him to kill him, to exile him, to do away with him under the false notion, the misguided notion that they could kind of force that affection to be accessible only for themselves. This is their reasoning. This is their reasoning, a false reasoning. And I say this to emphasize and to use it as an example that the intellect, the brain, the conscious mind can be manipulated into a false perception of reality. It can be manipulated into a perception that does not agree with the natural innocence that we were created with. And I know a whole people who were schemed against and manipulated out of their dignity, out of their self-esteem, and out of their natural entitlements. Now, in this story, Joseph, in the Quran, in his innocence, he was forced into a situation where he had to come to terms with the oppression of competing realities. The perception, the experiences that came as a result of how some people perceived reality suggested that he had great value And there were other experiences that he had to deal with that came into his awareness and experience that suggested to him that he was worthless and disposable. These competing interests, let me say it like this. The competing interests, whether it's with him or whether it's with us individually, whether it's with anybody, the competing interests force upon the innocent soul a tension that cannot be resolved without a higher level of understanding. That puts everything in its proper perspective and resolves the conflicts and the contradictions. This is the tension that Allah's special redeeming mercy of guidance came to address in the person of Muhammad the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him. Allah's special mercy, the special mercy of his guidance is reserved for people who experience that tension of competing and conflicting interests that burden the life and threaten to snuff out the innocent expression and that innocent soul. And the mechanisms that produce this tension, these mechanisms were operating in the life of Joseph, in the story that I mentioned. These mechanisms were operating in the life of all of the prophets of Scripture, including Muhammad the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him. Allah asked a question in the Quran. Do you think that you can say you believe and not be tried and tested like those before you? Even the messengers were stressed to such a degree until where they cried out, when will the help of Allah come? Even the messengers, the guided ones, the ones that we turn to for direction, even they were burdened with such tension to such an oppressive degree that they were crying out for God's help. And they were the ones receiving his special mercy. So this tension is something that's established. This is the established process that introduces God's guidance into the life of humanity. This is the process that produced Imam W. Mohammed from a special sensitivity of a people who were deprived of their most precious property, the property that is their inherent human constitution. So all of the conflicting interests, the oppressive perceptions, the oppressive orientations or presentations of the life that wanted to burden the people to suggest that they were disposable and worthless. These tensions surmounted, these tensions added up, these tensions converged to produce a sensitivity, a heightened and intensified sensitivity in the people that in an innocent soul produced Imam W. Mohammed and his guided leadership. Imam W. Muhammad's special guided leadership addresses the biggest and most oppressive conflicts and contradictions and influences of our time. His leadership is established and fixed upon a certain set of sensitivities of which the prerequisite conditions for that guidance, the formation of that guided tradition, the direction of that tradition of knowledge and tradition of leadership, and the conclusion of that tradition of leadership are all summed up in what Imam W. Mohammed presented to us in the form of his special dua. He summarized it and concentrated his teaching, his messaging, his emphasis, his direction, his guidance, his works, everything that he established, everything that he put into place, everything that was special about what is the tradition of Imam W. Mohammed and his emphasis and leadership for our lives, all of that is housed in the summary that is the concentrated expression of his guided dua, the dua of purification and purpose. Now, the correct concentration and focus and emphasis of his leadership, as I said, are preserved in this dua, and This dua is held in. Let me say this, and I'm wrapping up. I'm wrapping up my comments with this. I remember reading in the transcripts of Imam W. Deen Mohammed's Ramadan sessions from 2005, where he gave this dua and he talked about this dua. He emphasized the importance and the relevance of this dua. And when I read it in the transcripts, it struck me to such a degree, with such intensity, that I immediately devoted myself to commit it to memory. But from then all the way up until many years later, I've never heard anybody else present it or teach on it or talk about it. It was something that I got from the treasure chest of Imam W. Muhammad's knowledge that benefited me greatly, but I didn't see it being emphasized in anywhere in anybody else's presentations or in anybody else's claim to be properly presenting what Imam W. Muhammad taught us. Until Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed came into the position of leadership as the successor to Imam W. Muhammad. And he established his Islamic studies class, which is a weekly class that's focused on the emphasis. It's focused on this dua. This dua is the central focus of this class, and there's no other emphasis that should be at the center, because as I described the importance and the gravity of this dua, anybody who's claiming to have an affiliation, anybody who's claiming an identification with the leadership and the teaching and the direction of Imam W. Muhammad should have as an emphasis for what their sensitivities are and what their expression is in the world, this dua and what it contains. Again, Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed teaches a weekly class that's focused on this dua, and when you come to the class, you participate in the class, and you see and feel and experience the genuine, innocent, sincere teaching that's presented. There's no choice but to recognize that this is the legitimate continuation of Imam W. Muhammad's leadership. So I urge you who are sincere, you who are innocent, and you who have a sensitivity to see us advance as a people and to reach the destiny, the intended destiny. Go to eamspeaks.com, click on the menu item that says Islamic Studies class, and register for the class. There's no cost, and you're going to align yourself with the teaching of Imam W. Muhammad in a way that you won't see being presented anywhere else. So I close with that. Praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Peace. We thank our Imam Duhan Abdullah for them inspiring words. My next introduction is Imam Frank Shahid from Baltimore, Maryland. Imam Frank is a serious and deliberate and thoughtful person with an excellent spirit towards the work of establishing our Muslim American life. I ask that you give your complete attention to Imam Frank Shahid.
I greet you with the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
As we begin with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. I want to thank the organizers of this historic and monumentous day that we have here in Newark, New Jersey. For those who are here, the Newark group, and those who have supported the Newark group to put this event together. It's a very monumental and monumentous activity that we have today. Just want to share a few words with you, specifically about why we're here today. And we're here about leadership and the importance of leadership. Allah has guided man in a way, and when we say the word guide, guide is a reference to leadership. Everything that is in the environment of man is a form of leadership for man. And the culmination of that leadership is man leading man in the leadership. The earth itself, the universe itself, gives it all of its utility to man. So that man can have in his grasp, in his direct effect, the ability to shape it, mold it, and direct it for the best benefit for mankind. And ultimately, if that benefit is a sincere benefit, it benefits the earth as a whole. So that's how we should contextualize what leadership is. Now, especially in the time that we're living in today, in the world today, there's a strong curiosity and a strong misunderstanding, as well as a strong desire for what leadership truly is. The schemes of Shaitan, the enemy of man, has confused and confounded man's mind as to what leadership is and what it should look like. We know that Prophet Muhammad has said, may the praise and peace be upon him, said that if man has no leader, then Shaitan is his leader.
Right.
And using that same level of rationale, we come to the conclusion that since Muhammad the Prophet is the one who was benefited with revelation through that long line of prophethood, then if he's not your leader, then Shaitan is your leader. So we should look at how Muhammad the Prophet was sensitized to see and to have leadership brought onto him so he can be the universal example for all of mankind. So in our time in America, we were blessed with that long line of developmental leadership to the point that we come to a point where leadership becomes crystallized and becomes completely intact for us. The universal picture of what leadership is. And that was with Imam W. Muhammad. Imam W. Muhammad was formed in the Nation of Islam under his father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was given this context of how to bring man into a form of leadership by his leader and his teacher, which is Mr. W. Farah. So we see this line of continuation up into the point of leadership of Imam W. Muhammad. Now, Imam W. Muhammad doesn't stop with him, just like it didn't stop from the Prophet. The Prophet mentioned at his farewell Hajj speech that take this message to those who aren't here. For those who are not here may in the future extend this message farther than you could extend it. So that alone lets us know that it doesn't stop. Leadership doesn't stop. So, as we have been blessed in that same avenue, in that same vein, to understand exactly what leadership is, from who? Imam W. Muhammad. He let us know. He gave us pictures. He was pointing to, and he even introduced us to a spot where we can see what leadership looks like after him. That's what he worked for. That's what his father worked for. That's what his teacher worked for. Isn't that what we should work for? That's right. Absolutely. No doubt about it. It's clear. No doubt about it. So in that leadership, in that sincere leadership, we should know that that leadership protects the innocent. That leadership speaks for the innocent. That leadership creates an avenue and creates a pathway for that innocent to see its true destiny and its true establishment. Now ask yourself, in this time that we're living in today, where is that leadership? Where do you see it? Where can you find it? Leadership just doesn't pop up because situations pop up. Leadership is always there. We make our salat, our prayer, in the sunlight and in the darkness.
That's right.
The movement of leadership is in our salat. We are in salat and we're praying and we're giving thanks in times of prosperity and in times of regression. So we don't need any unusual circumstances in earth today to identify what leadership is. Sincerity from that leadership always presents itself. And it's those who are sincere can identify what that leadership looks like. And under the authority and under the leadership of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed, who has been the successor to that leadership of Imam W. Muhammad, we see that leadership. It is he who has spoken upon the prosperity of man in good times and in bad times. It has been consistent, just like our leader, Imam W. Muhammad, was under his leadership. So I give those in the audience and those out there in technology land to please give your attention to what leadership looks like and how it expresses itself in times of goodness and in times of regression. So I thank you, and I close with Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I greet you as Muslims greet, peace be upon you. I bear witness that there is none to be worshipped but Allah, God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We turn to him for forgiveness, we seek his aid, and we believe and trust in him. And we ask that the prayers and peace be upon his messenger, Muhammad, Allah's trusted and obedient servant. I welcome you, everyone, to this, our third annual Muslim American Leadership Day. Every individual being presented today has their special gifts and talents that lend themselves to the ongoing work of the Muslim American Ministry for Human Salvation and the support of the leadership tradition that the ministry is striving to strengthen, advance, and maintain. Our next presenter is a historian of African American life, from slavery, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and the Civil Rights Movement, and the effects of each one of these phases of African American life, how they have affected, in many times negatively, the African American experience. This gentleman is our brother and our professor, Brother Wali Shabaz.
Peace, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
With the Lord's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. This line of leadership the so-called American Negro is the only group in this society who were completely stripped, robbed, systemically divested of their humanity. And this line of leadership is the only line amongst the so-called American Negro that has a consistent train of leadership. Right. Excuse me. An independent, consistent train of leadership. The Captains don't have it. The Prince Hall Masons don't have it. The NAACP don't have it. The followers of Marcus Garvey don't have it. Name them. Since 1930, we had a consistent, independent line of leadership. No other so-called American Negro group historically can claim that. That is monumental. That is, it breaks the rule of why the Negro was brought here and trained. No, why the African was brought here, turned into a Negro and trained. All right, let's go to work. Africa. A girl 16 meets a boy 17 from her community. They fall in love. The boy asks the girl's parents permission to marry her. Her parents discuss the matter over with his parents, asking questions about the boy's character and his preparedness to provide for a family. The boy's parents question the girl's parents regarding her personality and capability as it relates to their son. The parents consent to the marriage and approach the community council of elders for permission for their children to marry. Permission is given. The children wed, the girl gets pregnant, there is a celebration of the birth of the child who symbolizes the union of the two families. That's Islamic Africa. Negro America. A girl 16 meets a boy 17 from her community. They fall in love, they decide to have sex. The girl becomes pregnant. She is afraid, but finally confides in her parents. They are filled with despair. They discuss whether she should have an abortion. After discovering that she is too far along in the pregnancy, she has the baby. The boy has no job or means of support. He even denies being the father of her child. He finds another girlfriend and doesn't see her anymore. The girl's parents are angry and want to file a paternity suit. The girl is emotionally devastated. When I'm in the FOI, across the bridge, Temple number 7, selling Muhammad Speaks newspapers, the captain of the MGT GCC on Saturday afternoon, where we are right now, Saturday afternoon, would host a luncheon in her apartment in Harlem. So all the single brothers selling Muhammad Speaks newspapers could go to the sister's house and meet single sisters. If you were in the fruit too long and weren't married, the brothers would approach you and say, brother, we ain't monks. Get a wife. That's our chain of lead. Don't tell me about Bidai and shirt. Tell me about human development and our evolution as a people in America. And you can't do it without leadership because we are traumatized. We are insane. And we act like, hey, brother, how you doing, man? I'm cool. Dying inside. We need guidance. We need direction. And part of the plot on the plantation, when we were finally given the opportunity to hear about the Lord, it was the slave master or the overseer who were teaching the slaves about God. And there was a strategy for the teaching of the slave Christianity. It was a strategy. You only got the sections of the Bible that talked about the slave submitting to his master. The psychology included in that kind of talk to the innocent mind of the slave was to give him the Lord and the Son of the Lord in their context in the image of the same man that had a whip on your back. So you're in and you're out, you love and you hate at the same time. When has that been corrected? The only black man in America, and I'm talking about this tradition, amongst our people, the only African American, the only Bilalian that gets respect in the black community is one that got reverend in front of his name. He can be a surgeon. He can be a master builder. But if he ain't got reverend in front of his name, he's not duly respected. And I submit to you, part of the problem in our community is that same mentality that has transferred from reverend to imam. And you got fakes who are talking about they are leaders and are not qualified to deal with the psychological damage that the African American has suffered in this society, starting with his understanding of who God is. So we're hurt. We've been dismantled. And this succession of leadership is what puts us back together.
That's right.
Anybody but Abdul Malik. That's what pulls these people together. Anybody but him. And he's the only one that's filling the role of succession. We're going to have successive leaders for the next 100 years. Are you crazy? It doesn't end. Like one of them left the Imam 3 years into his ministry because he started wearing funny clothes and speaking English in a foreign accent and don't need the leader anymore. And he go off to himself. Because he can read 9 words of Arabic. We got a psychological problem. And that psychological problem that the Negro experiences in this environment requires a psychologist of understanding of scripture, human history, and the making of the Negro. Hafiz, in the context of Hafiz alone, is not sufficient for a nigger.
That's right.
You were told to stand up, black man, and do something for yourself, not for a foreigner. We're scared, we're self-haters, and we have been victimized and don't even know we've been victimized. So the surgeon, starting with Mr. Farad, passing the scalpel on to his loyal student, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and all through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's life, he made sure that his son read Quran in the Arabic, preparing future leader. And then Imam W. Deen Mohammed found a young man who was open to him. And he poured himself into that young man, and the imams hated him. How come daddy like him? Now daddy gone, I'm gonna do my own thing. We gotta be courageous and tell the truth about BS. Y'all know nobody, y'all listening, know nobody is qualified. But this man. Bite your lip behind the leader. This group, that group, leadership is local. Have a conference, but I can't invite you. Anybody but Abdul Malik, anybody but the leader. After him, there'll be another leader in the tradition of Imam W. Deen Mohammed.
Tell it. Tell it.
We ain't qualified to lead ourselves because it was 250 years of robbing us of our manhood, of the natural role of the woman in the family. 250 years. And then another 100 years of Jesus is Lord, putting the image of God in the image of a white man, the so-called son of mother in the image of a white woman, all the angels in the image of white people, and God is an old white man with a white beard in my grandmother's house. Oh Lord, and then right away to your mind comes, now we replace the white man with an Arab. Allah is sufficient.
That's right.
If he gave it to him, he can give it to me.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Indigenous leadership. West Africa, where we come from, indigenous leadership. That means all the people in West Africa, Ghana, Mali, Senegal, Nigeria, where the great empires were in West Africa. All the empires in the Moors in North Africa. All of their leadership was indigenous leadership.
Right.
People that look like them. East Africa, the leadership was foreign. Empires came out of West Africa, not East Africa. Independence came out of West Africa in terms of indigenous leadership that gave guidance to the world. East Africa were merchants, still merchants, underneath somebody else. Stand up, black man, and do something for yourself. That's all.
That's good.
That's our professor. Praise be to Allah. Thank you. Our next presenter is a resident of Newark, New Jersey. He became a member of the Nation of Islam in 1968 and worked and studied under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then in 1975, after the passing of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the selection of Imam W. Deen Mohammed to lead the Nation of Islam, he worked and studied there. After the passing of Imam W. Deen Mohammed, he's become a loyal and committed supporter of the one that Imam W. Deen Mohammed trained and expected and prepared to lead the community where we are now. As the Imam in this city and a small team of committed supporters of the one Imam W. Deen Mohammed prepared to lead after him have worked this year and the 2 previous years to put together this special program that honors our special leadership. With that, I call before you Imam Mubin Asim Nasheed. Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That is, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Take this opportunity to just reiterate what's been said and to give us somewhat of a clearer picture, or not necessarily a clearer picture, because my brother, Professor Shabaz, did a remarkable job in highlighting our path throughout the centuries, really. First of all, I'd like to give thanks for who have come out to our 3rd annual Muslim American Leadership Day. I want to take this time to extend appreciation to our brothers of Rochester, who are Imam Hadith Wahid, Imam Muhammad Ali, and Imam Hashim Abdullah, for their generous support in assisting the Newark team, which includes Sister Robin Latif Farms, Brother Daryl Chapman Nasheed, Brother Elijah Muhammad, and Brother Calvin Hubbard. Through their efforts, continuous dedication, and support, we were able to bring this event together. I'd also like to thank the mayor of the city of Newark, Raj J. Barakos, for his leadership in continuing to propel the great city of Newark, the great city into their new challenges and endeavors and opportunities for the people of Newark. Our Newark team attended the mayor's meeting last night, which was truly inspiring to hear the mayor explain the numerous business and real estate opportunities that take place and how we can benefit from them. The main reason we are here today is to acknowledge the leadership and how it came to be, or how it came to propel and inspire and motivate us. We have come from a rich history of great leaders such as Frederick Douglass, Noble Ali, Martin Luther King Jr., to name just a few. But what started us on our path to this great religion of Al-Islam is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a man taught by a foreigner who went by the name of W.D. Farad, who came to America in 1930 in search of a people deserving of the rejuvenating and reforming power of Islam. It was here that he found and taught Elijah Poole, who became one of his best students. And after about 3.5 years of the teaching, the mysterious leader was gone, leaving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to the task of cleaning up the people who were rich and spiritually, but yet deeply oppressed by the American culture. He was able to raise up this people to become dignified and morally upright people in America with good sense of community development. It was this womb of development that produced our leader, Imam W. Deen Mohammed. I want to stop in my notes and give you something personal. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad his work was just almost a miracle. You had people that many of us didn't even have a sense of cleanliness, decency, and many of us did, but we were so deprived, so lifted up, so let down, and we're talking about 1930, a time when the country was in oppression, and he struggled, much like we're seeing right now. Different circumstances, but yet very similar. And it was out of that struggle that produced a man who came about, who said, rise up, you nation, you can accomplish what you will. I remember the drive and the sense of brotherhood that was created by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the sense of sisterhood. The professor pointed out how the sister would bring sisters together and brothers together so we can formally get married and properly get married. But he established a moral teaching and a moral existence in a community. And because we were isolated, we took to it because we stood out. We were the nation of Islam. We did not see ourselves at that time as a part of the United States of America as a whole. And this man, his bold movement, produced one who he said, first of all, he said that I'm here to clean you up. One coming after me would be the one who would take you into Islam. And that was his son, Imam W. Deen Mohammed. The leadership, it was Imam W. Deen Mohammed that introduced most of us to Al-Islam as taught and practiced by millions of Muslims the world over. His unique and profound understanding of the Quran and his teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, his profound understanding of the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. It was this teaching that propelled us as African Americans to the forefront of true Islamic recognition in America and in the Islamic world. Imam W. Deen Mohammed passed away in September of 2008, but not before telling his followers that there is one who has done more than anyone else to get the proper picture of W. Deen Mohammed and Al-Islam in the world. And that one was Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed. Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed has revitalized, rejuvenated the teachings of Imam W. Muhammad and set us on a clear course of true community development and moral excellence.
Right.
And it is this path that we travel to our intended destiny. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank our Imam Mubin for those words that he just shared with us in history. Today's topic by the successor of Imam W. Deen Mohammed. God's judgment on the Muslim American community. How close are we to Prophet Muhammad's community model and devotion to the human individual? Powerful. When I heard that language, I said, praise be to Allah. I'll be in attendance. Yes. Who's speaking like that? Just in the language of the topic is much. Praise be to Allah. My next introduction is our brother and friend, Imam Ibrahim Al-Amin. He is the special assistant and national representative of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed. He is a person devoted to this work in uplifting humanity, and in particular, the African American Balalian people. Imam Ibrahim Al-Amin.
Assalamu alaikum. Praise be to Allah. We thank Him, we seek His mercy, and we ask for His forgiveness. It is a pleasure, as always, to be here in Newark, New Jersey, but in particular on this special day, Muslim American Leadership Day. On behalf of the Ministry of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed, the Muslim American Ministry for Human Salvation, we wish to extend our gratitude to the believers here in Newark, Imam Mubin, Sister Robin, and others, as well as the support that they received from our brothers and friends in Rochester. And we congratulate them on this third observance of this particular special day for us. Professor Shabaz spoke quite eloquently to the nature of how human communities are formed, and in the case of the African American people, how they were deformed. When we look at Muslim American, when we look at how peoples are formed, we see that they're formed by their experiences, their social experiences, psychological experiences, spiritual experiences. And those experiences form sensitivities. So for us, Muslim American Leadership Day is a recognition of sensitivities that were focused for us by Imam W. Muhammad, and primarily the sensitivity to continue our messaging and purpose in leadership. This is what has characterized us as a people. As Professor Shabaz pointed to his banner, a very, very clear representation of our journey from the slave mind to the mind of a new people. These sensitivities are what characterize us as a people, but it is also the sensitivity to continue in this tradition is the metric by which we can determine which individuals or groups are in fact representing us in accordance with who we are naturally and independently. The test on all of our leaders from now until many, many generations from now is their sensitivity toward this continuity. Now, some might say Imam W. Muhammad didn't name his successor. Well, I would say that neither did Imam Elijah Muhammad. Neither did any Muslim leader following the example of Muhammad the Prophet, quote unquote, name a Muslim leader or name his successor. But we do know that the Prophet pointed to one that the Muslim community should look to upon his passing. I was watching a documentary, and I would encourage us all to see it if we haven't seen it. And it echoes something that Professor Shabaz said. I believe it's titled The History of the Nation of Islam. Sharif Nasser is the brother who produced it. And in it, it's an interview with Nathaniel Muhammad, who was one of the second oldest son of Imam Elijah Muhammad and the minister in Kansas City. He said that his father was speaking to him and other leaders of the Nation of Islam. And he told him, he said, I can get you to the door, I can get you right up to the door, but someone else is going to have to show you the way through it. And he said that, and he said, I knew exactly what that meant. I said, I knew that he was talking about Wallace. And in a similar fashion, as Professor Shabaz made note of, Imam W. Muhammad said that he had to acknowledge the one who had done more than any other to help him get the correct picture of Muslims and Imam W. Muhammad to the world. Now we should take, I think, some time and think about that statement. Because what is he saying? That the correct image of Islam has been lost. Not only lost to the world, but lost to the Muslim world. So the work that we are doing, this sensitivity that Imam W. Muhammad has focused for us, is not simply to be a Muslim people. Not simply to go to Jummah on Friday, have Eid, say Assalamu alaikum, cheek to cheek, and all of the surface level expressions of what it means to be Muslim. We have a universal mission and a universal destiny. And that has been expressed in each generation, in each age, with each leader, and it continues now. It was necessary for Imam W. Muhammad to identify one in whom this sensitivity would not only register as an awareness, but manifest and evolve as a lifelong determination. We recently someone characterized the work that we do and characterized us as a small band. And they didn't say that in the sense that they weren't saying it positively. They were saying it in a disparaging way. Yet, if you go to their website, the most prominent thing on their website is pointing to this small band. And Allah says in the Quran, let there rise out of you a group. So from the larger group, let there come out of you a small band. The leader of that band is the one that Imam W. Muhammad prepared for the role, despite the jealousy of Joseph's brothers, despite the circumstances that we see in the world, which can be quite troubling, and despite the challenges that we face here in America, psychologically as a people, but also materially, is a lifelong commitment. So I ask that you give your attention to Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed, the successor of Imam W. Muhammad. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank
Praise be to Allah. That is God Almighty. We worship Him. He's doing nothing but we worship with Him.
He that is almighty and perfect. We greet you as Muslims do. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
On you. This is a very fine day in the city of Newark. I thank Allah for that sign, clear skies, and pleasant temperature. Could have been cold. We were season for it to be a little more chilly than it is. You see these changes in the physical world, and you're alarmed by it. It concerns the scientists, and their report to the public through the media makes us concerned too. But a nice day is a nice day. We thank Allah, thank God for it. And if we're conscious, God has promised that He favors the good conscience, that He favors the good conscience, and that He leads us to the good conscience. And this recognition today, Muslim American Leadership Day, is a recognition of that conscience. It's really a recognition, celebration in a way, of new language, a new language of understanding, a new environment of language, the birth of a new language of expression and understanding of human life, what ails human life, and the context for struggle for human life, and the focus and purpose for the creation of human life, its destiny, the hope that God has put in the heart and soul or disposition of every newborn, inherently. It takes some difficulty to bring that new life into the world. The mother feels some tremendous pain, and the parents, that new life that they're charged with responsibility to shape, to prepare, they feel some pain too. I'm thinking of some of my children, the pain that I felt. We wanted to see them succeed, and knowing that I can't trade places with them. All we can do is give them the best possible support and the best possible understanding of the value of their life, and point them in the direction of the universal destiny of man. That's the help that we give them. And so what we're doing today is we are paying public recognition to the evolution of that kind of understanding in the context of it addressing a people who have become lost by schemes, not on their own, but by schemes against their humanity. They became lost. And Mr. W.D. Farad, he used language to indicate that he was searching for a lost people. Now, in his wisdom, he excused himself from the whole process of their renewal, because he was foreigner. And his sensitivity was not to introduce himself in a way to burden them so as to oppress them, but to introduce himself in a mysterious way which would create in them a kind of natural curiosity, and be curious about what he was pointing to and what he was hoping for, and to push his image out of the equation once they found the answer. Push his image out of the equation and look at what he was himself looking at as the answer. There's a photograph up there, and to tell you what he was looking at in his wisdom, what he was looking at as the answer, as the remedy. Fundamental teaching to form sensitivities in that people by processes over time. This day today, Muslim American Leadership Day, is something that exists in the soul that must be expressed. It's natural for us to have hope that our leadership will continue, that our sensitivities as a people formed for this purpose will continue in the world, that will have expression in the world. And the nature of opposition to that doesn't even figure into the determination itself. We expect opposition. Every individual and every group that has something sacred to offer mankind for its development as God intended, God instructs them to expect opposition. So the more opposition that we get, to me, is the more, sign that we're the legitimate leadership. Doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I'm inspired in a very profound way when I learn of their plots against us. I mentioned this before, and I don't have, Allah is my witness. I work hard to not have an ego. I ask Allah for forgiveness. I turn to Him as a worshiper, and with humility, I humble myself. I have no capacity. I don't want any capacity to carry an ego. I invited one of the imams from here, from Newark, that if he thought that he had something important to say to you and to this audience, that he could take my place. And I meant that very sincerely. I don't see it here. But I say this, and I repeat these words because it's important to understand my orientation and the things that I have claimed. It's important that I make these things clear, not for people who want to disagree necessarily, or for people who have bitterness toward us or hatred. It's not for them. It's for the record. It's for the historical record. It's not to charge up people and to get them to explain, oh, Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed is the leader. He's the successor. No, that's not the interest at all. It's not to impose what I'm saying on anyone. But as a young man in my 20s, Imam W. Deen Mohammed, the son of Elijah Muhammad, the leader of our community, he said to me, do you understand that you are to me and a combination of me and my father? That's what he told me. He told me that in his home, in the home of his daughter. An intimate setting is what I was getting at, not a public setting. It was an intimate setting. It was a private setting. It was he and I only. And he was responding to someone who had sent him a recording of me to critique me or to criticize me. Now we know that this happened to him too, and I was aware of that. He was letting me know. He said he had this tape. He sent it to me. He said I listened to it. He said, you understand that you are to me a combination of me and my father. Now what could I do except sit there and nod? But I didn't understand what he was saying. In that moment, at that tender age, 25 or something like that, 25 years old, I didn't understand what he was referring to exactly. I knew that I had devoted myself to study of his leadership and his teaching and to Islam as he taught Islam. I knew I had done that. I knew that I had made myself aware of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and to the point where I had a reverence for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that came not just from my own study, but it came from preparation of members in my family. My grandfather, he wasn't a member of the Temple of Islam, but if there was an opportunity for him to join the Temple of Islam in the city that he lived in, I believe he would have. He certainly was a supporter, and he sought Elijah Muhammad's words, and he shared those words with me when I was a little boy. I have a memory of it all. I have a memory of it. I can't remember the details, but I have a memory in general, and that memory caused me to ask my mother about it. And she said, yes, he did. He did have you sit there, and he would read to you from the newspaper, Pittsburgh Courier newspaper, Mr. Muhammad Speaks. So when I look at my conversation with Imam W. Muhammad, I have to understand it. I have come to understand it in the context of what's happening and what the needs are today. He also said to me in that same conversation, he said, you knew my father. He said, no way for you to have known him. That's what he said. There's no way for you to have known him. You're too young to have known him. What he meant was you weren't consciously aware of the influence of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his teaching, because your life, you were just born in 1965. So consciousness, if we just go on in the symbolic language of consciousness comes at 10 years old. So when he passed away, I was 10 years old. So Imam was telling me, he's speaking to me directly, but he's also speaking to me with some powerful symbols, okay? And he wants to register this on me. That's why he chose this intimate setting. Just he and I, no distractions. He said, no ways for you to have known him. He said, but you know what? He said, you know him better than most of his ministers. Imam W. Muhammad, he gathered all that from that one tape, from that one speech that I gave at Johns Hopkins University? No. No. I understood that what he was telling me was something that I should not forget. And now, in this time, under these circumstances, I understand what he meant. What he meant was that leadership for us and for the world, in the context of our importance in the world, in critical moments in the world, must reflect the continuity. A people lost, a humanity lost, to the fundamental value of human life, lost to the knowledge to support the development of human life, lost to the sensitivity to be responsible for innocence and to see innocence advance upon common inherent potential, advance to its destiny. That understanding, there will be a time, this is what he was telling me, there will be a time when that understanding will be lost. Even in our own folks, in our people. And you have to be prepared to remember it, to express it, to argue with it, use it to argue against inferior ideas. Use it. Use that continuity, that awakening. Use its fundamental language and emphasis to tackle the problems in the time where you will be in the focus of leadership. Don't distance yourself from that. Don't separate yourself from that. Don't let anyone invite you to an idea of Islam that puts you aside of that. No matter what the rest of them are doing, you hold to it. I'm charging you with that responsibility. I'm charging you to remember Elijah Muhammad, my father, in your mind, in your spirit. Remember him. And remember me in the context of that continuity. And you continue. And I believe that if Imam W. Mohammed were here with us, if he was sitting in this audience right now, he would point at me. He said, you have done what I've asked you to do. I made a little bit of a in the topic. I like the topic that I gave, God's judgment on the Muslim American community. How close are we to Prophet Muhammad's community model and devotion to the human individual? I am not separating myself from that topic. What I'm addressing today is that topic, but I wanted to add something to it. And that is righteous struggle for the dignity of man, the Islamic mission in society. Now, we're in a special city, Newark. It's not that much different in character from most of the cities on the East Coast. Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., New York. You know, it's not that different. It has its special characteristics, you know, its special history, like all cities, its special character. It has that. But what I'm wanting to mention about Newark is not the city itself, but something in the sensitivity of the people that are associated with the history of Islam in America by way of the influence of a concept in the name of the city. There are other cities called Newark, Delaware, Newark, Delaware. And there might be others, maybe, I don't know. But I know Newark, Delaware. But the concept, the idea of Newark. Newark. This idea was of significant importance to Imam W. Deen Mohammed in his ministry. His visits to Newark have a different, or I should say, a distinguishing characteristic. The distinguishing characteristic was that he was much aware in his preparation for his visits to Newark of the meaning in the concept of Newark. New art, a new picture in his mind or a new perception of what is the relationship between God and man. How man perceives that relationship. Most importantly, how man perceives his responsibility in that relationship. How man perceives his responsibility in his relationship with God. What God has endowed man with. How man processes that endowment. Language of description of that endowment and the process of that endowment, the purpose of that endowment, and the responsibility of man to uphold that endowment is what was influencing Imam W. Deen Mohammed as he was looking at whatever it is that he was wanting to discuss with the audience in Newark. So he's discussing something specific, but it is impacted and empowered by this overriding concept. And so that is what made his message in Newark so special. This is the subtext in his consciousness was this awareness, this special awareness. So if you were to be present at his addresses in Newark, and you weren't present at other addresses in other places in the country, you weren't missing much. You might miss a few details here and there, but if you got what he was saying in Newark, you would be able to process and understand what he was saying in Chicago or Detroit or Los Angeles or wherever he was in the world. That's how important it was. And so his ministry, the fundamental basis of his teaching and understanding evolves upon this recognition of relationship between man and God. Covenant. It is said that the Christians, the Jews first had the covenant, and the Christians had the covenant, and then the Muslim leaders argued that Muslims have the covenant on them, that they have the covenant, and their expression of it means that they are favored, that they are the favored of God. But that's not what the covenant means. It doesn't mean that you're the favored of God. It doesn't mean that you're the chosen. It means that you're special, that you have a special favor, but you have to first acknowledge responsibility. And that comes after you become aware that you are under or within the context of that covenant. Because the covenant can be on you and you not be aware of it. You become a selected people by virtue of circumstances. Circumstances that you had no control over. No control over it. What control did a Palestinian farmer have in 1947 over an agreement made by powerful interests in Europe to settle a people who had become disturbed by their own mistreatment? What power did those farmers have on land that they had passed down for generations, going back into ancient times. They had no power to oppose the great Western powers with their powerful, frightening military might to impose upon them a people who had themselves been abused in Europe. These great European powers, these big powers, they didn't want to be bothered with that abused psyche. And so they imposed that group upon another group, had no power to oppose it. Ordinarily, I don't wear a tie. I hadn't seen yet where we should be tied. I had one on today, and we're tied without separation from the innocent that are right now being assaulted by a racist, Zionist, aggressive war machine. So we're tied to them. Their struggle is righteous. Now, their leaders, a whole lot of them are not. A whole lot of their leaders are not. And if the Muslim world had its sensitivities in order and had its leadership had the proper picture of what respect human life is entitled to, they would be prosecuting the judgment against Hamas leadership themselves. They would tell that aggressive war machine, step aside and let us find them. Under Muhammad the Prophet's leadership, they would have no space on this earth. Aggressing against innocent life. Islam is the argument against the idea that you can pursue freedom and justice and equality by any means necessary. That is not an Islamic idea. It is condemned in Islam. The only means that you can pursue your dignity is by means that God approves in the spirit of obedience to Him and out of respect for human dignity and life. Now, you telling me that Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed shouldn't be heard? That's right. What leader in this association of Muslims is speaking this way? But in spite of your opposition to me and to us, we prevail. We prevail. We have this audience that we have here, in this setting here, a dignified audience, and you should be congratulated. And we have a dignified audience looking at us right now from all over the world. Not just these United States of America, in other countries around the world. They're listening carefully to our proposition. What is our proposition? That God has created man with honor. And that honor progresses. It progresses. There's a fundamental honor, a basic inherent honor, and it evolves to greater and greater awareness of the possibilities of that inherent excellence. Eventually, it's supposed to form itself in recognition of the responsibility to provide for an environment, a community setting, wherein human life can flourish. The whole picture of Islamic teaching, the whole emphasis of Islamic teaching is to pay tribute to the human individual as created by God and endowed, given inherent value and worth so that it may be free to establish itself in society and to provide for a society that guarantees the proper aid, assistance, support, and development, proper environment for development of that human life, so that it can realize for itself its highest expression, its highest expressions of excellence and beauty. That environment guarantee it its natural rights. That's the whole focus of Islamic life. There's no higher interest. Say, well, the highest interest is to obey God. Yes. For what purpose? For what purpose? We don't have a spirit in Islam that is without direction, all over the place. We have a definite focus on where we should be aiming our attention. And it's given in symbolic language in the Quran. And you know, the Native Americans, they have this knowledge. It's in symbol. It's in many ways obscured, but they have it. They have this knowledge. The knowledge of the arrow. The knowledge of the arrow and its trajectory and its destiny, where it's going. It's not, you know, when the science that supports the use of the arrow, as it matured, those who made arrows in the ancient world, they learned you have to use feathers. And it has become more sophisticated now. You know, they don't use feathers. But before the sophistication of advanced technology, they used feathers. So that tells you, and listen, this was a sacred science. So that tells you that they understood that in order for this product to get to its destiny, it must be guided by a spiritual sensitivity, an evolved high-level spirit, not just some base spirit that goes all over the place, high-level spirit. And the wise among the leadership of the Native Americans, you know, the wisest of them, his headdress had a whole lot of feathers. You know, a warrior, he might have one or two. He's not yet having what was necessary to lead the people. Have to have a whole lot of spiritual understanding, high wisdom. And so they put that in their technology. And we think, oh, they used that just for as a weapon of war, or as a weapon to hunt. No. No, you have to go search, you got to search deeper. Because when they asked them, where did you get it from? Where did you get the concept? They said, we got it from the moon. Meaning what? They got it from the natural world. They got it from the reflected light. They got it from the movement in their soul to be enlightened as to their purpose. That's where they got the knowledge. And in the Quran, it mentions that Prophet Muhammad, his spirit as a human being, and God's will for man's purpose and man's existence was as two arrows going to the same destiny. The Islamic determination is to work to relieve pressures from human life, to provide answers to the natural curiosity in human life for its purpose, and to guarantee, to build and to guarantee an environment that respects human existence, human development, human excellence, human beauty, and restricts, limits, and even makes war on anything that wants to oppress a human soul. That's the righteous struggle. And Allah says, God says, that He has created human beings in struggle. Now, there are different words in the Quran for struggle that are translated struggle. And they have weighted value, okay? Some are of higher importance for particular interests of man's development. So there are categories of struggle, is what I'm saying. In the interest to establish a human life in society, there is struggle with forces in the life itself, and there is struggle with forces that are outside of the life. There is an inner determination, and once the value of human life crystallizes in that inner determination, there becomes an outer obligation to bring that value into the proper picture and focus so that it will be an inspiration to man. And so Muslims in particular, if not all religious people who believe in God, find it necessary to struggle against the forces of oppression. It defines the life. It disciplines the life. We have it even in the picture of childbirth. There is struggle on the part of the mother. There's struggle on the part of the baby. There's struggle even in the father. I know I struggled. I struggled in that delivery room. I heard words come out of my sweet wife's mouth that I never heard before, directed toward me. That was struggle. It's human. That's human. But it's struggle for a father to see, a husband and father to see the wife in such inexplicable distress and very close to death. And the focus of the father on his wife and the mother of the child, his interest is not just, obviously it's clearly he wants that his child be healthy and that the child not have any distress, but if he is having the right sensitivity, the sensitivity is not just for the birth of the child, it's also for the condition of the mother. I've heard stories where the mother will pass away in childbirth, and the father is so distressed he can't even look at the child. Take some time. That's a sign. Something that Allah, God, wants us to understand about the nature of struggle. That the nature of struggle, when you are accepting responsibility to build society, one fundamental recognition that must be made and must be guaranteed and must be preserved and must be defended is the relationship between parent and child. It is a sacred matter. I sent a letter to the President of the United States. I was so displeased with his, what I thought was rushed disposition to visit Israel. I said to myself, you have an obligation. And I met him before, President Biden, when he was senator. I was on the train, and he rode the train from Washington to Delaware. And I was on the train going from Washington to Baltimore. And so for that stretch, he and I talked. I recognized him. And we talked, we had a nice conversation. I found him to be a very nice man. And he expressed interest, which I thought was sincere interest in us, in me in particular, but in us. At that time, I was the man in Baltimore. So I found him to be a very decent person, decent man, thoughtful, respectful. And I don't know that the letter I wrote as I was writing it, that I don't know that I thought that he would actually read it himself. I hope that he would, but I thought that it definitely would reach some people in his orbit, in his staff. You know, they would get it. And I'm certain that they got it, because I heard in his speech language that let me know that he was moved by what I had said to him, and I was glad of that, because what I wanted to impress upon him was not just our commitment to the determination of the Palestinian people. I wanted to impress upon him the nature of that commitment was to respect for parental rights and child rights, and that he himself would recognize and understand the importance of that as a parent, because he describes himself often in the context of his relationship with his children. So if parents and children in their fundamental dignity are being assaulted, that should move you. So when I said, the language that I used in the letter was not the Palestinian people, not the Palestinian struggle, etc. I said Palestinian mothers, fathers, and children. That's what I said. Now that letter has gotten a lot of attention. It's gone all over the world. If you haven't read it, you should. I believe God helped me direct it when I wrote it. And I believe that it will go down in the history of this community as expression of Muslim American leadership in a critical moment in this world, inspired by this continuity, this consciousness. It's a shame. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace on the soul of our people, African American Muslims, that the leaders of Muslims in Newark are not present.
Yes, sir.
They don't know how shameful, how they have shamed dignity. Because I'm not here to impose myself on them. I'm here to represent our interests. If you have something to offer that is in line with the universal interests of man, do you think I'm going to turn away from you or reject you or not offer you this same opportunity that I had? I did that. I have a witness. Where's my brother, Elijah? Is he? Didn't we do that? Yes. So it's not that I'm hurt personally. I'm not hurt in the sense that I'm not going to do my job. I'm so burdened and hurting in tears that I can't perform myself. No, my hurt is for your following. You're cheating them by not providing good leadership. At the very least, you should say what Imam Abdul Malik is talking about is very important. And I encourage, I'm not evolved enough socially to be there myself, but you all should go. That's what I would have done. Muslim American Leadership Day. The best spirit of the influence of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on the city of Newark. Well known, respected and honored, even in the public officials. They cite his works, and they have been shaped themselves by his influence.
Yes, sir.
The mayor of this city, I know that he will publicly acknowledge that. And the character of the people of this city have been shaped and influenced by the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It has been shaped and focused by the teaching and the leadership of Imam W. Deen Mohammed. So if we're having a program honoring that tradition,
Yes, sir.
it would follow then that those who have been associated with that would invite the public to witness it. That's just common sense. That's no stretch. Say, well, we can't support you. That's the problem. You. I tell you honestly, if Imam W. Deen Mohammed, if he hadn't indicated to his following, to his people, that he held me in a certain kind of esteem, if he hadn't said those things in public, if he hadn't said those things in those precious moments where he's addressing the whole people, he's not addressing 3-4 people, he's addressing the convention. He's addressing the big assembly, the biggest of the assemblies. And he's telling them, this person is important to me for our purpose. And not just one time, several times. If he hadn't done that, I wouldn't be standing here before you right now. I wouldn't feel authorization to do it. If he hadn't told me privately, so I have that to look at, and then I look at what he said to me privately. If I didn't have those things motivating me, I would be actively looking for someone to support and encouraging others. Look, we have to represent our interests in the world. The world has been separated from common, decent human logic, moving it in the direction that God intended. I want brother, sister, please, if you have a strength of will, clear mind, good intent, moral balance, I want to give you my support. I want to give you my resources. But this burden came on me. And I'm looking at it. I say, well, you can't excuse yourself, even though you're in prison. Even though you're in prison, you can't excuse yourself. I remember I told my father, I said, Dad, I'm going to write this book on extremism. He said, well, I respect your son, but how you going to do that? How is that possible in this situation? And I told him, I don't know. I thank Allah that we found a way with Allah's help. And even from prison, even from the oppressive circumstances of the prison, being in the unjust situation to begin with, but just having to live in that situation for 7 years. No way for me to separate myself from it. I had to live it, I had to deal with it. But I had to be productive in the spirit of what charge that I was given. That our community has something important to say to humanity because we have been selected for that purpose. The covenant of God is on us, and we have been selected from all of the communities of man on this earth to deliver the message of what a human being is, what a human life is, how a human life and a human being should be respected, how it should be appealed to, what its foundational excellence is, and where it should be going. We have been selected. How do I know that? Because of the special language that we have, derived from divine guidance, derived from God's revealed word, given to the leader, eternal leader for mankind on this earth, Muhammad the Prophet. The language of human establishment in the world. We have been given it in this time when the whole Muslim world in its leadership is focused upon ritual life and inviting humanity to embrace Islam upon ritual appeal, and have not the language or expression to uncover what the ritual means and what the ritual is emphasizing, what the ritual is pointing to. But we have been given that understanding. We have been given that language. We don't have the formal education in the Islamic sciences that many of these people have. Even some in the African American community claim that. But they haven't this language that I'm offering you today to address these conditions in the life of man. All that they can invite you to is to pray behind them in the mosque. I can tell you right now, the innocent life that's being assaulted in Gaza is not looking for a mosque to pray in. They're looking for the world to respect the edifice that the mosque represents in their dignity as a human person. They are themselves the mosque. The human life itself is the mosque. It is a conscious evolution from the material world of expression of obedience to God, alignment with God, covenant with God, that demands recognition. It demands citizenship rights. It's entitled by its creation. Antahilum bihadal balad. You are a free human soul in this city. You have the right to call witnesses in humanity to your inherent right to be respected in society. As a child, who is speaking for them in this language? In great America, with its powerful recognitions of the human entitlements, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights. This great land claiming that great principle. You can't see the trouble? No, because you in this time have not been selected to see the trouble and speak to the trouble. Yes, sir. It is the leadership that is succeeded, that continues from the first awakening of Mr. Farad's teaching into the ears of Elijah Poole. Yes, sir. It continues in us now, with this great responsibility on us to deliver the message that, yes, God, we are hearing what our responsibility is. And yes, God, we accept responsibility to shoulder the struggle. And that is the definition of righteousness
Yes, sir.
and determination in this time, standing upon the solid edifice of moral decency and calling the great powers to respect your finer traditions, respect your best language, respect your best principles, but not excusing even the weakened people, not excusing those that have been lost, charging them with responsibility, that when you have been awakened and you see clearly and hear clearly, then give every measure, every ounce, every fiber of your being in support of that leadership.
Yes, sir.
And that may be the decision, the deciding factor for whether or not God's favor continues upon you. That's how powerful it is. That's how important it is. That's how central it is. So I'm not just speaking to you here in this audience. I'm speaking to the life of man on this earth. I'm speaking to mankind on this earth, the whole human family. I'm speaking to all of them, from the soul of the African American people that were oppressed, separated from their humanity, but came back to life in the tradition of Elijah Muhammad
Yes, sir.
and W. Deen Mohammed.
Yes.
I represent them in this moment, and they appeal to mankind.
Takbir. Takbir. Takbir.
It's a shame on America that we even had to have a civil rights movement. Long before the West had recognition of rights, Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and the peace be on him, wrote into the charter of Medina respect for the rights of minorities, respect for women, respect for the principle that supports public education. You would expect that the Muslim world, having that foundation and tradition, would be foremost in social history to guard the sacred value of human life. But you know why there's desperation on the part of the Palestinian leadership? Because there is no depth of understanding. There is no public moral commitment to the value of human life, even in the Muslim world.
Yes,
The sacred shrine at Jerusalem, that shrine belongs to mankind. That shrine is a symbol of man's moral development, his enlightenment, and him meeting with his destiny. It belongs to all people. You can't make your capital of your society that city. That city doesn't belong to one people. It belongs to the sacred social determination of man. It was in that setting that Prophet Muhammad ascended for the second time. Ascended in his discussion and recognition, his discussion, his internal discussion with his own social spirit for completion. and his determination. That is what is commemorated, his ascension. You're talking about his physical ascension? I'm talking about his spiritual and social ascension to understand the value of human nature in the context of God's unfolding of its power. That within it is the potential to realize social community excellence. And that once it crystallizes in your conscience, you become obligated to bring it about in the earth. That ascension in Prophet Muhammad's understanding that went from ritual to implementation. He was shown the possibilities and then felt and understood the obligation to build it in society. That's the Islamic mission. And when we look at that sacred shrine at Jerusalem, that is what we're supposed to be reminded of. And those that shoulder the responsibility and see within themselves that they are the custodians of that obligation, it becomes a requisite for us to live for them and to support them. Let that wash over you for a minute. Dear people, as I said a few minutes ago, you should be congratulated, because the appeal that we're making doesn't have the attraction that an entertainer has when they come to a city, or an athlete. So for you to separate yourself from something else that's pulling you to come here today is a recognition of something in you that God approves. And I can tell you that it's no insult to me when they say that I belong to a small band or that I'm the leader of a small band. No insult at all. Muhammad the Prophet and his followers was a small band. Elijah Muhammad and his followers, in the context of Great America, was a small band. Imam W. Muhammad and his followers, small band. So if I'm in that company, I'm honored. I'm honored. And I thank Allah for you. I thank you for your attention and your patience. And I hope that together we will be a factor. We will be a factor, a moral determinant to seeing an enlightened picture of human life in society restored. That's our prayer. We ask Allah to help us, to strengthen us for that purpose. Thank you very much. Peace be on you. Assalamu
Praise be to Allah. We thank Allah for the timely message that we heard today from our leader. Clarity of language, clarity of understanding. At this point in our program, we have envelopes in the seats. If you would like to support financially the work of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed and continuing the work that Imam W. Muhammad demonstrated for us, you can put your financial donation in this envelope, and Imam Frank Shahid, standing in the back, you can give it to him once we conclude. We also have vendors here today. We have about 4 vendors here today. Once we conclude, please go out and look at what the vendors have, and we ask for your support. We also have a complimentary meal provided by the Newark team, free of charge. Make sure you get some of that food, and we converse with each other at this part of the program. At this time, what we would like to do we thank Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed, Special Assistant. He just shared with me. Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed will be speaking, giving a major public address December 3rd in Detroit, Michigan. December 3rd in Detroit, Michigan. And for more information, look to the website, MuslimAmericanMinistry.com. We'd like to conclude now with Imam W. Deen Mohammed's dua, his plea. O Allah, we cannot manage this life for ourselves, not without you. Please make our life what you would want it to be, what you prefer it to be. Do not allow us to act on our own. Help us to act only in obedience to you. We hear you, we obey you, and we look to you, our Lord, for forgiveness. And to you is our destination. Amen. Thank you.
Takbir. Takbir.